Hi, this is Miss Morphew. Welcome to our lecture on fundamentals of speech communication. There's some basic concepts, terminology, and understandings that we will use in class. You're currently seeing the screen as a PowerPoint with the slides on the left.
What you see when you open a slideshow.
And that's one way to navigate while also seeing the comments that go below the screen. If you open in full screen, you can see any animations, transitions, and this first fundamentals video lecture is going to cover glossophobia, a couple of communication theories and models. We'll talk about purpose and how we will assess our speeches and that ever important audience. And then knowing how to plan with our specific speaking purpose and audience in mind.
In the longer lecture, we have embedded external videos which show a variety of content and concepts as background information. Our first two videos are on combating a common experience.
Many people have glossophobia, the fear of public speaking, and there are numerous tips and tricks, so find what works for you. One method is to use progressive relaxation. Whether you think of it scientifically or
Holistically, play along with the next two videos.
Listen to the terminology this fellow uses.
Welcome to 1 Minute Wellness. My name is Brendan Herbert, and today I'm going to teach you a simple trick called progressive relaxation. We use progressive relaxation to help relieve stress and increase oxygen and blood flow throughout the body while we're stuck sitting at our desk all day long. Let's start by working our way up from the feet all the way up to the chest and face. So I want you to scrunch your toes up. I want you to practice squeezing your glutes, engaging your abdominal muscles, making two fists, shrugging your shoulders, and pursing your lips. We hold here, and then we relax. Repeat this process 2 more times to help to really bring blood flow and oxygen to all these different muscle groups to help to relieve that cortisol level and relieve some stress. I hope this helps, and we'll see you next time on 1 Minute Wellness.
On the other hand, if you'll look at the background of this room, you'll see
Setting contrast.
there are some holistic type of terms that can be associated with progressive relaxation. This doctor associates the muscle tensing and relaxing along with breath.
I am Dr. Tren at Energy Psychology and Wellness. I want to share with you a quick progressive muscle relaxation techniques that we utilize a lot here in our practice. So for this techniques, all you need to do is find yourself in a comfortable positions. Ideally, if you can, lay down and relax your body. If you don't have the room to stretch out your body, it's okay. You can sit on your chair as well, but you want to uncross your arms and uncross your legs. That way we can get the full blood circulations flow in our system. You ready? Let's go. Now tense up your face, squeeze, make a face, squeeze the eyes, squeeze the nose and the face, and even the tightness on the top of your head. Squeeze everything as you're inhaling, and then relaxing the body, exhaling, relax, let go of those muscles. Moving down to the neck, the shoulders, the chest area. Again, squeeze. If you want to, you could squeeze in and make a fist and tighten everything as you inhaling in, and then completely relax, let go. Relax the whole body. Moving down to the core, squeeze in that belly, squeeze everything in as you inhaling in, even the buttocks, the thigh, the hips. Squeeze, hold, and then completely relax, let go. Last one, moving down to the legs, the knees, the calves, and even your feet, flexing that muscles. Squeeze as you inhaling in, hold it, and then exhale, relax completely, relax out the body. See how that works for you. I hope this will help circulate your blood flow a lot better, helps your body to relax.
The fundamentals we're going to cover today will be very brief sections of theory and a few models of communication. We'll talk about purpose of our communication and something that can be using any version of OCD or cash on delivery, DOC, or even the fish, cod.
OCD is a very serious condition, and we don't mean to diminish, but any of these acronyms
is a method we use to assess our communication. We're going to really look at audience. So what is communication? It will not be on the test, but I'm hoping to put some interactions in this slideshow. The definition of communication is the transmission of a message from a sender to a receiver in an understandable manner. So the process is a guide towards realizing, creating that effective understanding. You gotta have it, or you don't have communication. One of the main individuals known historically for the work on rhetoric and a number of other subjects is Aristotle. Aristotle had a linear model of communication, started with the speaker, put together the message, the speech, considering what occasion was going on, considering the audience, and then looking what effect did that have on my audience. In the 1950s, end of the 50s, Shannon and Weaver did research for Bell Telephone, and that was the only telephone company. Bell Telephone Laboratory researchers said, this is the model. Now, not the feedback part, just the top part. First, you start with the sender, and then you have to put together or encode the message, consider what media or channel of communication you were using, so that the receiver would decode the message, and then that was the whole linear model they had. In the 1960s, Berlo's SMCR model expanded Shannon and Weaver's with feedback and other human communication factors. So still linear, but now we're beginning to have a little circular to understand if there is communication. Still linear, but now we're beginning to have a little circular to understand if there is communication. In the 70s, Stuart Hall was looking at mass television and very culturally aware because television was beginning to be put in almost every home. With television, you had one sender sending out to multiple receivers. Think of how many TVs or screens you have in your home. But sometimes things got in the way. They were clutter, they were noise that would shift the interpretation. And that noise included physical context, the educational level, the gender, what they thought was right or wrong, the ethics, a person's role in society, and the receiver's cultural context. So this is another communication model. Researchers have created so many different models depending on the situation. But there's a problem. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place. So effective communication is not defined by the communication, but by the response.
Created using PowToon.
No matter how well a message is delivered, a speech's success or failure has to be measured in terms of how the audience responds. Now let's talk about topic, and specific purpose. You need to know your why. We've said the audience is king, but you need to understand what your specific speaking or message sending purpose is if you're to craft a message to reach that purpose. Let's look at a video I made, 2.5 minutes, on the 4 reasons we will communicate. What are our purpose? In my in-person classes, I give an explanation that choosing your purpose and knowing it will help craft your speech, and it can be different, a different plan depending on the purpose. We might inform, just inform. We might persuade, convince someone to change their mind or action. We might entertain, and we make a message purely to make someone laugh or cry, just to entertain them. Or we might just have catharsis. To have a cathartic purpose means you just want to get the emotional release out. So you might combine those, but let's see how it's different. A few years ago, I broke my ankle pretty badly. I had been writing a grant, needed to get a paper out of the campus so I could finish this grant for the evening. And I tossed my purse and my phone in my passenger seat and thought, oh, I got to clean the chicken. I got to go close up the chickens. And I was running around the driveway area in the garage area to go to the chickens, and I hit wet concrete, did a little boogie dance, and broke my ankle really badly. Had to crawl back to my car and thank goodness could get my phone and got help. I could tell that story to inform and just give the fact. No big elaborations. It's very informational. And then here was the results, two months in a wheelchair. I could persuade you to walk like a little old lady or man every time you see wet concrete. So I would show that there was a problem, and I would expand on that. And then the solution, I would convince you based on my example and the way I crafted it, that you need to walk slow when it's raining outside or there's puddles outside. I could entertain you because, buddy, that could be funny. If I put my body language into it and I planned to describe the humor of the fact I was going to feed the chickens and then I did this boogie dance, it could be entertaining and sound kind of funny. Or I could just give it as my emotional release. Wah, wah, wah. And again, I can combine some of those purposes. So in 2.5 minutes, I hope I've let you know you need to know your specific speaking purpose as you're crafting your speech. That will make it easier. So the 4 purposes, and yes, you've probably seen inform, persuade, and entertain in your old English classes. I've long taught, even with my elementary, middle, and high school students, catharsis is also a purpose. These are our 4 purposes for speaking and writing. When we add the topic to that purpose, we'll have a specific purpose. But sometimes we do combine them, and we can use appeals. We can add the variety of support so we can get hearts and minds that not only reach our purpose, but connect that purpose with that audience, that receiver. My in-person classes, then look at the next slide, and we'll have an activity, but you can just look at that and think about it, maybe interact with your base group if you're in asynchronous. There are 4 types of listening, according to this method. We have appreciative listening, empathetic listening, comprehensive. You've heard of comprehension checks at the end of a textbook chapter, and critical listening. Look at this list and its explanation and combine it, connect it, match it to its specific purpose. To inform, I hope you got that we need to understand. Comprehensive listening. To persuade, yes, that's critical listening, because we want people to evaluate on their own, use their critical thinking, and accept or reject what we're trying to persuade them to think or do. To entertain, of course, that's appreciative listening for enjoyment. And by the way, that can be happy or sad. Sometimes our eyes will water up in a movie or something, and then we still feel better. It's entertaining. So finally, catharsis or cathartic purpose would be for emotional support, that empathy that another person can give us. I hope you have a person who has empathy and can give you emotional support. Think about when you connect a message to someone or as you're crafting a message, how do you want that person to listen, that receiver to get it? So knowing your topic and your specific purpose for every message is a key element for clarity. And we decide the clarity of our message
in a number of ways. This is how we assess our speeches. Each rubric will show how we guide our listeners along, how we organize the words, the content, words and visuals, and how we deliver that with all of our stance, our vocal changes, our facial expressions, movements, and gestures. Organization, content, and delivery.
The Speaker's Guidebook, 4th edition, says, have this blueprint, state your purpose, and I don't say do it in the first line, but state your purpose so it's clear. Organize your messages so they're coherent, understandable. They often suggest that you open with a hook, some kind of an attention getter. If you do it early enough, you'll be able to revise your work, revise, and harness the power of stories, even if it's a short little example anecdote, or if it's a little bit longer story that illustrates what you want to say. That'd be powerful. It also re-engages in a video. If you're telling, sharing a story shifts the pacing and reconnects any listeners who have kind of tuned out. The guidebook suggests that you make them laugh, and there's actually research debating on that. Do that if it's natural for you. Certainly, we'll want to add some credibility with some authoritative sources in our researched speeches.
And by sharing your cred. Finally,
it says close with a bang. In fact, we call that a through line. We have 3 elements in our researched speech conclusion, and the final one is called a closer. Sometimes if it connects to something said earlier in the speech, it is that bang. It's very satisfying through line. We've got the levels of communication with your content, your actual words spoken, with your appeals. That's the way you connect, grab hearts and minds, and with your authority, along with whatever visuals, models, anything you have that helps organize or expand your message. We have all those nonverbal behaviors, such as body language, stance, your facial expressions, and your gestures. They can enhance your message. And if you're not a natural hand talker like Morphew, you'll see in my videos, plan a few specific places to put in your presentations that emphasize or bold, underline the words or ideas that you're covering. Your voice is going to be a powerful tool if you use vocal variety and you have the way you say something be interesting by changing your tone, your speed, or your pace. The powerful use of pause, I say the power of pause, intentional pause, the intensity of your voice, even that volume, all of those things can emphasize what you want to emphasize.
What's up, everybody? This is Charlie from Charisma on Command, and today I'm going to be doing another video breakdown, this time of how you can use your voice to captivate attention and be more charismatic. So you can see here, I've selected Neil deGrasse Tyson to illustrate this point. If you don't know who he is, he's a science educator and a scientist. He's recently started the show Cosmos, and I think something like 8.5 million people watched the first episode, which speaks as much to the interest and the public's general interest in science as it does to the ability that Neil deGrasse Tyson has to captivate people. And I think this video will do a really good job of showing what it is about him that makes this happen. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and you'll hear the question that he's responding to now.
What is the most astounding fact you can share with us about the universe? The most astounding fact.
So first thing I'm going to highlight here, he's got this silky smooth, Barry White quality of voice. I can't even fake that. A lot of people can't. What you can do though is generally, again, particularly for men, this is going to be very helpful, and for women as well in some cases, by exercising your diaphragm, by doing diaphragm exercises, which I don't have time to go into here, they'll be in the book, or you can just Google diaphragm exercises. By doing those, you can actually lower the timbre of your voice in normal conversation without stretching to do it. And I've been doing singing lessons and have seen personally a shift in how I sound over different recordings that I've done. So that's the first thing about him. The second thing about Neil deGrasse Tyson to notice is how he uses silence and how he shifts the cadence of his speaking to draw people in, to make them wonder what he's going to say next. So pay attention to that.
The most astounding fact is the knowledge that the atoms that comprise life on Earth, the atoms that make up the human body, are traceable to the crucibles.
So I want you to notice this. He's got an incredible range of ways that he speaks. When he says crucibles, he's got a very breathy quality to that. You'll notice that he whispers at times. Whispering, when you have someone's full attention, is a way to indicate that they need to listen up, that what you're saying is fascinating. And you'll oftentimes see when people are telling stories and they get to that emotional moment and they have people right there, they'll whisper like this. And as they continue to go on, that draws people into the story and they switch the cadence up. So pay attention to how Neil deGrasse Tyson does that.
That cooked light elements into heavy elements in their core under extreme temperatures and pressures. These stars, the high mass ones among them, went unstable in their later years. They collapsed and then.
So notice the cadence. At the end of his periods, he doesn't always have that long pause. In fact, when he said these stars, it was right on the back end of a previous sentence. Mixing up the cadence like that of the way that you speak keeps people engaged. So pay attention now to the rhythm of how Neil deGrasse Tyson speaks and how that makes this even more captivating.
Exploded, scattering their enriched gusts across the galaxy. Gusts made of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and all the fundamental ingredients of life itself. These ingredients become part of gas clouds that condense, collapse, form the next generation of solar systems, stars with orbiting planets. And those planets now have ingredients for life itself. So that when I look up at the night sky, and I know that, yes, we are part of this universe, we are in this universe, but perhaps more important than both of those facts is that the universe is in us. When I reflect on that fact, I look up. Many people feel small because they're small and the universe is big, but I feel big because my atoms came from those stars.
So it's a great example of a couple of very important things to keep in mind when you're trying to become more charismatic in the way that you tell stories or in the way that you use your voice. The first, and this is true for both men and women, studies have found that a deeper voice has a more commanding and a more authoritative tone. So the degree to which you could do diaphragm exercises to lower your voice is going to help. You want to breathe from your stomach, you'll feel it there as opposed to your chest. So when you take a deep breath, you should feel the expansion right around your belly and your sides and your back as opposed to the expansion in your pecs. It's a complicated thing. Talk about it more in the book, and you can read more just by Googling diaphragm exercises. The second is that you need to have a range of tonality. You can imagine what this would sound like if I talked like this the whole time, and I'm sure that you know someone who speaks like that. A range of tonality is going to help engage people, and a range of cadence too. This is something I personally am working on right now. That is one of the things that makes Neil deGrasse Tyson such an engaging speaker, is that he sucks you in with those pauses and then puts you almost back on your heels by jumping right back in at unexpected times with new enthusiasm. So I hope that's helpful in terms of breaking down charismatic things that you can do when telling stories and using your voice. If you like this video, we've got other ones on eye contact, gesticulation, so feel free to check those ones out as well.
From vocal variety to a way to make your voice stronger, let's listen to Karen Friedman.
She says there are 5 quick tips that you can use for vocal variety.
Hi, I'm Karen Friedman. Tip 11 to go from boring to brilliant is to focus on your delivery. When we speak, we have very natural inflection in our voices. This is called vocal variety. For example, I wouldn't say, I am so excited to go on vacation. I would say, I am so excited to go on vacation. Yet too often people stand in front of a room and they sound like they are bored to tears. They'll say to me, well, Karen, my subject is kind of boring. Wrong. There is no such thing as a boring subject, only, and pardon me, boring presenters. So how can we fix this? Well, think of it as the 5 Ps. First, pause. Slow it down. Pause for effect and importance. That helps people pay attention. Pace. Speed up when something exciting or good is about to happen, but slow down when it's not. Pitch. Work on lowering your voice, which signals confidence. Pronounce. A lot of people trail off at the end of the sentence. Be careful to enunciate your words. Practice. Have a conversation. That means practicing with your slides to learn the material, and then practice without your slides so you can explain and converse. Finally, you can practice by reading out loud and changing the way you do it each time. For example, Jane chased Spot. Jane chased Spot. Jane chased Spot. Variation also keeps you from sounding monotone. Until next time, I'm Karen Friedman.
Finally, let's look with some graduate students from Stanford at body language, your nonverbals.
This is the final video on delivery, and many people say, although this is long, this is one of their favorite videos in this class. They refer to it in their final reflection papers sometimes. You decide if it's one of your new favorites or not, but take in how they say you should stand, how you can use your body to emphasize your message, and what knowledge you can have of your audience with ways to re-engage anyone who's kind of disengaged.
What makes one an exceptional presenter? Is it flashy visuals? Is it the tone of voice? Is it the actual message or content? Or does it have something to do with body language, our gestures, and our stance? Today, we want to talk to you about this latter point. How do we use our body effectively to communicate our message? Because we have so many great ideas here, but if they remain in our head, don't actually link up with the audience, our message will not have arrived. Our message will not have resonated with the audience. So body language plays a powerful role in how we communicate. And unfortunately, body language can also distract. We've seen this clip before of Michael Bay, right? He speaks, the teleprompter, he loses sight of what's happening, the teleprompter doesn't sync up, and he struggles. And all you see is his body moving around, and he's nervous. He's exuding it. So I want to give some color commentary as we rewatch as a class what is happening. So his stance at the beginning, it's okay, but his hands, he's meshing them. Now he's starting to turn from the audience. Again, his hands are clasped. He's looking a bit down, not at all of you, the audience, and he spins. He shows his back, the audience, and he can't regain composure. He's swaying back and forth. He's looking down. He's avoiding the audience. His nerves are coming out. Again, his hands stretched out. And now I think he's looking at the back of the stage. That's the exact opposite place from where you want to actually look. He's incredibly nervous. Now he exits the stage. We all want to avoid our own Michael Bay moments when we communicate. The last thing we want at a startup pitch or meeting is to have that happen, is to have the body language take over from the message. If we lose sight of what our body is doing, all people can pay attention to is the body itself, right? It'll take over. So that comes down to not only can it distract, but the body language it is your superhero, right? That it can change, it's your superpower. Sorry, not a superhero. You're the superhero. But it's your superpower in the sense that we can utilize it to enhance and communicate with every person in the audience. We want to talk about that today from 3 vantage points. Colin is going to get us started in talking about how posture breeds success. Jung-Joon is then going to talk about how gestures to strengthen your message. Finally, Jennifer is going to close us out with how we think about the body posture of you, the audience, how to interact with that. Colin, take us away.
Communication begins before you even open your mouth to speak. Your audience's first impression of you is your posture and your position. And so it's important to know both how to stand as well as where to stand. And perhaps it's fairly obvious, but you should stand facing the people you're talking to. Don't stand facing your visuals and turning your back to the audience. That's not what we want to do. We can't communicate that way. It's also important to know where you're standing in the room. A position of strength in this room is somewhere in this center box. As long as you're moving around in the center, you're doing pretty well. Where you don't want to be is off in the corner cowering, or especially in front of any distractions. And this room is pretty good. It doesn't have that many distractions, but there is a window. And outside this window, there are cars, there are buses, there are bikers. And when I was standing over there, probably about half of you could see in your peripheral vision outside the window. And if a car were to drive by, your instinct, your reaction would be to look out the window, and that would break your concentration and our conversation. And we don't want that either. And now that you know where to stand, it's important to know how to stand. So we're going to demonstrate a few positions, a few bad positions that we've seen from us and some of you guys, and even from the presentations earlier today, that you shouldn't do. And the first one is hands in your pockets. This comes off as nonchalant. Your shoulders tend to roll forwards, and it's very difficult to convey a strong message from this position. The second one is hands on your hips. When your hands are on your hips, you tend to look overbearing and powerful. And the third one is the fig leaf. This is where you're protecting your family jewels with your hands. And while it also looks timid, it's especially bad when you decide to gesture from this position. I want to show you something. You look like you're flashing the audience, and that's not a good thing. So how should you stand? And if I could actually get all of you to stand, I'll lead you through a short demonstration on how to find your base posture. So once you've stood, be mindful of the people next to you and place your feet hip-width apart. Close your eyes and look up towards the ceiling and lift your hands above your head. Get a good stretch underneath your shoulders and let your arms drop to the side. When you open your eyes, look down. This is your base posture. Thank you very much for participating. You guys can sit down now. Now that you've found your base posture, this is where you should gesture from, and it's where you should return to when you're finished gesturing. It may not feel the most comfortable, but it looks the most comfortable to your audience. Remember that your posture and position are the audience's first impression of you. But now that you know how to stand still, it's time to learn how to move.
Gestures are important because it helps you communicate them. For example, if you use gestures, the audience remembers twice as much. It also helps you, the future speakers too, because it helps your memory when you speak. Also, beside the transition, your hand and arm movement is the biggest movement that the audience can see. You can either use it wisely or waste it on random and distracting gestures. I'm going to show you 3 types of gestures. the give, the show, and the chop. Here's an example. This quarter at the GSB, I went to this communications class. It was so great. I mean, you could feel that your skills are improved. I think this was the best class I've ever taken. Let's rewind and see what happened. The give. This quarter at the GSB, I went to this communications class. So this gesture is used to give the audience the facts or the options. Remember to have your palms up, not down. We'll get to that in a minute. The show. I mean, you could feel that your skills are improving. This kind of gesture has the largest variety, and your imagination is the limit. Just remember that the gesture and the message has to match. For example, you can't say profits are rising with a gesture like that. So, congruency and creativity. The chop. I think this was the best class I've ever taken. So, this gesture is used to deliver strong opinion. You can either use it one hand, or you can use both hands. You can use both hands and do a larger chop, which will deliver a stronger message. So, next time when you do gestures, think about these 3 types and plan ahead. 3 types is the give, the show, and the chop. I bet everyone in the room is going to remember this. Just work. That's the message. Another subject is about having your palms up. So, I'll give you an example. People on the right, please rise and move to the left. I'll do it slightly different this time. People on the left, right, please rise and move to the left. One more time. People on the right, please rise and move to the left. Do you see the difference? Which one do you think would make more people move? The first one, yes. According to the study, if you have your palms up, 84% of the audience complies. If you have your palms down, 52%. If you have your fingers, 28%. Never use your fingers at your audience. It looks just arrogant, and only politicians use that. Clinton used it. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. It looks bad back then, looks bad now. So never use it. And last but not least, avoid the T-Rex gestures. For example, people on the right, please rise and move to the left. No matter what you do right, I mean, it looks silly. So loosen up, everybody. Always remember that gestures are there for you and the audience to make a deeper connection. So far, we've talked about the audience. Now it's time to focus on you, the audience.
As Jongjun and Colin and Matt described, we've been focusing on the body language of the speaker. But let's not forget, who's the real hero here? As we learned in our first week of class, it's not me, the speaker, it's you, the audience. But what happens when the audience doesn't realize that they are on this hero's journey? Have you ever seen an audience that looks like this? Have you ever been that audience? It's okay, we all have. Whether we're playing on our phones, falling asleep and nodding off, looking at the clock, and calculating, can we make an escape from this room? We've all done it. But the thing is, it's the speaker's responsibility to understand what's going on with their audience, and body language is a powerful way to assess that. As a speaker, we can be so focused on our own body language that we never even notice what the audience is doing. And it's important to change that. So I want to share 3 strategies for how you can engage with your audience better by developing more observational skills. So first of all, absolutely be using the gestures and body language tools that we've talked about today and over the course of the quarter. But the second thing is to notice. Of course, you're going to be looking for eye contact, but look beyond it. Look at how your audience members are sitting. Are they fidgeting? Are they moving? Are they leaning forward, looking engaged and taking notes? Or are they zoning out? If your body language, your eye contact, and your efforts at being compelling are not working, then you can go deeper. You can try to surprise the audience with a question or use some humor. Or you can disrupt the audience. As students, we hate being cold called, but we know it's effective, right? Jason, what's your favorite color? Okay, very good. You got that one. As we all know, it's the fastest way to re-engage with the conversation, the speaker. So don't be afraid to use it. It's so important to keep your audience on track because they're the hero and it's their journey. Remember how Nancy Duarte told us that we are the Yoda to the Luke Skywalker, and our job as the speaker is to keep the hero on their journey.
With that in mind, I think we've talked about 3 concepts that really remind each of us about how body language is your superpower. Use it, become that superpower, become that superhero, and we welcome any questions you have on how to stand strong, gesture effectively, and engage the audience. Thank you.
Remember that we've covered theory and given you 3 models that we've seen of communication. We've talked about specific purposes and how we can use organization, content, our words and visuals, and our body delivery and our voice delivery to engage our audience. In the second part, we're going to talk a little bit more about audience and then some methods we can use briefly to understand overcoming barriers with appeals and visuals. In class day 1, we said that we were going to cover some fundamentals and you were to create a personal, dated reflection journal to capture your thoughts and feelings about the kinds of things that we do, and even if you see them applied elsewhere, capture those thoughts and feelings. We will come back if you were assigned this as an independent day task and debrief on day 3. If you're using this for a reminder of the fundamentals, good on you. Feel free to ask me if you'd like to confirm, clarify, understand any of these concepts a little more.